Hello and welcome to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naim, and today I'm joined by Dapo. Dapo, how are you, bro?
I'm doing very, very well, thank you. Enjoying the recent weather in the UK. It definitely feels like my mood is attached to the weather, and it's really sunny at the moment, so I'm enjoying. How are you?
No, yeah, same. London's the same in it. When it's winter and it's cold and it's raining, no one wants to be around. But when it's hot, warm, and sunny, and the sun's out, and London feels like one of the best cities in the world, and the mood always lifts up.
Literally.
It's always good to enjoy this and take it in for as long as we get it because we don't get
Yeah,
that often.
we
Um,
don't.
But speaking of sunny days, I mean, we kind of had a couple sunny days from boxing. It's kind of now we're getting cloudy weather. It's not really that interesting to look at, but we'll review all the sunny days that came by, and we'll also look at some of the things that are coming ahead. So, of course, we didn't do a review for the Garcia weekend with Inoue and Teofimo and Canelo and all of that. We're going to skip past the Canelo fight because, if we're being honest, it's not much worth talking about. That one was a real downer. It
That
really,
was a stinker, mate.
that one doesn't really warrant talking about. I think the only biggest talking point is Canelo Crawford, and eventually when we get Samps on the pod and we get Jide, that will be a big talking point. We'll discuss Canelo Crawford in detail. But that
hmm
whole weekend was something to not really look forward to. But there are some headlines and some big things that did happen on that weekend, even though it was kind of a bit of a downer. First thing, obviously, we want to talk about is Ryan Garcia obviously losing. I mean, what a shock loss. I mean, I did not expect him to lose to Rolly Romero. I think Rolly is not good. I'll say that I don't think he's good. I think he's competent at a decent level, but he on the world, you're talking about world champion level, he's not there. And he didn't just drop Brian Garcia, and he didn't just drop him and had him down. He outboxed him for the majority of the fight. Brian really couldn't do much to Rolly Romero. He looked dumbfounded after 2 rounds, and he looked out of confidence. He looked out of shape, not out of shape, but he looked rusty. And he also looked like the PEDs weren't there for him. So there's that aspect there. And Rolly Romero, he looked competent. I'll give him that. I think that was one of his more better performances that I've seen from him. He looked competent. He was ready to pull the trigger whenever he needed to. He had that right hand glued to his face, and him and Ishmael Silas came up with a great game plan to actually land that left hook because Ryan's always got his right hand down. And it was a good game plan. I'll give it to them. They really did a job, and Ryan didn't look anywhere good at all in that fight. I know you're a big Ryan Garcia fan, so I want to get your take on how you found him losing to Rolly Romero.
You're moving mad. I'm not a big Ryan Garcia fan. Um, okay. If we would have previewed this fight, I would have said I'd expect Ryan to win.
We did preview it. You
What?
weren't here.
Oh, I mean, if I was there for the preview, excuse me, sorry, my apologies. I should have been there. But yeah, I would have expected a Ryan win.
Hmm.
I did not expect what happened, and the thing is, it's mainly because of Ryan himself. I feel like if Ryan showed up and did the things that he's good at, I still feel like he should have beat Rowley, even with his limited. Because I still think Ryan is quite limited in certain areas. Even with those limitations, I still expect him to beat Rowley because I think Rowley is even more limited than Ryan Garcia from a skills perspective. Um, so what actually happened during the fight, I did not expect. I think this is probably the worst kind of performance you can have coming off of a drug scandal because it just looks like whatever, like it just looks like the PDs just helped him become a different kind of fighter. Even if it's like a mental edge, some way those PDs has affected his game. And the fight itself it was really underwhelming because even though Ryan got dropped and that was fun, it wasn't much of a firefight. As soon as he got dropped, he just went into his shell.
Hmm.
And it felt like he was fighting to survive. And I don't know what Rolly did to warrant that style from him. I understand after you're dropped, you're very conscious of being dropped again and you don't want to be stopped or knocked out. But at the same time, he wasn't trying to win the fight for me. And that's a massive, massive flaw in a fighter, in my opinion. I feel like he may have been figured out a little bit in this instance because all you have to do is just win your respect from him and he will shell up. So he didn't show up at all, and I feel like he has crushed his momentum coming off of that Devin win. Even with the drug scandal, the cheating, whatever, he still he still beat up Devin Haney, and that did tremendous stuff for his profile to the point where he was the main event of that card with fighters like Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney. I know they were all co-mains, but he fought last, so he's essentially the main fighter. And to have that kind of performance coming off of that Haney fight is just it's a really, really bad look. Let's talk about the fight itself. I don't think Rolly actually did anything spectacular or special or anything that would have been really hard for Garcia to deal with in the fight itself. The game plan was good and it made sense from a defensive perspective, having his glove close to his chin so that Ryan couldn't land that left hook. But at the same time, Rolly didn't really do anything that warranted such a negative response from Ryan. Like, his output just decreased so much because of that one, right that landed on Ryan. And I was just really like shocked. Because I've always felt like even if Ryan was to get hurt in a fight, he would get back up and give it his all. So yeah, honestly, disappointing performance from Ryan Garcia, but it's kind of vindicated his doubts a little bit, and he's lost in a very, very bad way. Like, outside of being knocked out, that's another really terrible way to lose. You get knocked down, and then for the rest of the fight, you don't want to engage. That's terrible. So really interested to see how he goes from here. But yeah, overall, shocking performance from Ryan. I will give Rolly his credit though too, because he never gave up. He did lose some rounds at the start of the fight, but he continued going, and he stuck to his game plan. And sometimes in fights like that, you can get overconfident when you've hurt your opponent or you're doing well. He stuck to the game plan and he stuck to whatever it is his coach was telling him to do, and he saw the fight out and he won. So credits to Rolly Romero for trying his best to keep the fight interesting, I guess. But yeah, disappointed from Ryan, and congrats, Rolly.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, and we talked about this, like Ryan makes a lot of mistakes fundamentally. And it's the same mistake that he's been making his whole career that got him in trouble, which was dropping his right hand, getting hit by the left hook because he can't recognize it. But a lot of why Ryan can't get to the position where people think he should be getting to is simply because of everything outside of boxing. I think a lot of the times when you're someone like Ryan Garcia, who amasses a big following in the sport without having to do much in the sport itself, it does bring its benefits because you get more money, you're able to get bigger fights easier, but it does bring a lot of its challenges in the sense of having to navigate everything outside of boxing and trying to focus on your craft. And the problem with Ryan is he's always never seemed that keen on wanting to be the best fighter on the planet. It's just being good, landing those knockouts when he can, and then moving on and living his life, basically. He's young. He indulges a lot in the LA lifestyle. You've seen it a lot when it comes to, he's joining the streamers and he does this. And everyone says, well, he's had a, year out of the sport. But, even in that year out that he's had because of the PED ban, again, no one wants to mention that, but yeah, because of the PED ban, it wasn't like he was just in the gym working, trying to get better from that Haney performance and capitalize on it. He was doing everything outside of working on his craft. He was probably training, like going to the gym and keeping himself fit maybe, but he wasn't working on his craft. I mean, he switches trainers like girls switches clothes. You know what I mean? Like he went to Joe Goosen when he lost to Tank, dropped Joe Goosen, went straight to Derek James. Won against Haney, obviously tended to no contest. Then he dropped Derek James for Eddie Reynoso. He dropped Eddie Reynoso after because Reynoso was basically going to Riyadh. So that wasn't going to work. It was either him or Tio, I can't remember. Then he's back with Derek James. And I always question it when a guy always changes trainers. So he went from, his dad, he went to Joe Goosen after, and then he went to Derek James, that this person isn't really looking for the ability to look inside himself and see, why do I have to improve my craft? It's more, it's someone else that can improve it for me. So I need to go here, I need to go there. And he's always looking on the outside, he's not looking on the inside. And that's what I think happened in this year. He wasn't looking on the inside thinking, okay, look, I beat Devin Haney and he's a world champion. Okay, I didn't get the win because of the PEDs and whatnot, but I beat him. Now let me get better so then I can, actually go and get a world title. I can go and beat more guys. He didn't do that. He slacked off. He came back once the whole Riyadh season got him involved, and that was it. And then he comes back into it. And you saw in the fight he was a bit rusty, but also when he got hit, when he fought Luke Campbell and he got hit, Luke Campbell's not a big puncher. He's not a bigger puncher as Rolly Romero. So there's a difference there. But when he got hit by Luke Campbell, he gave Luke Campbell hell to pay for in the next rounds. He wasn't letting that go. In the Rolly fight, it just seemed like he couldn't do anything, and he didn't want to do anything. Maybe out of fear of getting hit again, or maybe he just got hit and he realized, I don't have it in me to go after a fight the way I used to. And that can happen to a fighter very easily, especially when there's all these outside factors coming in, where, let's be real, with someone like Ryan Garcia, he could leave the sport and still make a couple million, because he could go into acting, he could go into influencing, he could go into whatever, and he doesn't have to be training this hard, he doesn't have to be taking punches. And so it questions your motivation, because it's quite of a big loss, because even you saw, I mean, like I questioned his commitment to the sport many times, because I go, he said in the Tank fight when Joe Goosen was giving him good instructions as a Tank fight, and we spoke about this in the review of that fight when it happened 1 or 2 years ago. It was 1 year, no, 2 years ago. He said that Joe Goosen gave him good plans, but in round 2 he just said screw it, and he just got bored in there. And that's the type of fighter he is. He's not really looking to become the best fighter. He just gets bored. He's doing this. He's naturally good at it. He got bored, and when he gets bored, he just does whatever he wants. And so we saw that the culmination of that here, when you've been out of a year of the sport, when you've been out for a year and you haven't been training like that, you have to be on top of everything, or else you're not going to look good. And that's what happened. He didn't look good. And I'm not saying he can't beat Rolly Romero, or the only reason he lost to Rolly Romero was because he was out for a year. But it's a multitude of factors as to why he lost, as well as Rolly having a good game plan. Ryan's really going to have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to himself, in terms of not his style, but his mentality. How much do I really want this? I mean, he was crying in the car after the Rolly loss away from the public, which I get why, because he didn't expect himself to lose this fight, and he knows how many fights he's just lost now in terms of the doors that have been closed, like the Haney rematch and all of that. But he's really going to have to look inside himself and go, look, I need to change this, or else I'm going to keep losing to lower level fighters like this.
He needs to decide what he wants out of the sport, man. Do you want to be a world champion? Like, what is the motivation?
That's the thing, is like,
just commit to whatever that is.
But some people want to be. At the same time, when all this other money comes in, it does tamper with your motivation. Why do I need to take this much damage when I can just get the same amount of money, but I can just slap on a computer, go streaming with some people, and that's it? I'll make the same decent amount of money. This sport isn't for everyone, and Ryan's he's talented at it, but mentally he's going to have to lock in. He's young. It's not like he can't get better. It's like one loss doesn't define your career. Obviously, got 2 losses. The problem with this loss is, at least to Tank, there was an understanding that Tank is an elite counterpuncher. The moment you make a mistake, he's taking you out. And that happened. And fair enough, it happened to Ryan Garcia, and he came back from it. This one's a bit tougher to take, because Rolly's never been looked at as a good boxer. His best win is probably Anthony Yijit. I have to check again, but I don't even remember.
That's some very controversial fights as well, Rolly. Some bad
losses. Not the Barroso fight, he didn't win. Let's be real, he didn't win the Barroso fight.
Exactly, and that guy is like ancient.
Yeah, Yijit would probably be his best win, and that's not a guy you want to be losing to, like a guy who loses to Anthony Yijit. And then, last year he's getting railroaded by flipping Isaac Cruz. I mean, that was he got destroyed in that fight. So, Ryan's going to have to do a lot of searching. But Rolly, on the other hand, he needs to utilize this moment as much. Go everywhere. Get as much screen time as you can and call for the biggest fights. Because at the end of the day, Rolly's young too. He's like 29. Well, not that young, but he's 29. You're at the best point in your career. You need to go and get those big fights, whether it's with Devin Haney, whether it's with Boots, whoever it is. Go and get those big fights, man, because you're not, or Ryan Garcia rematch, because you're not going to get a bigger chance now than this. So, credit to Roddy, though. Like, he proved a lot.
Agree. He should milk it as much as he can now.
Yeah, and credit to Roddy. He proved us wrong. He proved all of us wrong. He went and won that fight. He did his job. And look, he's got so many doors now opening for him. So hopefully he can capitalize on that. I mean, the rest of the weekend, you obviously had Devin Haney come back. And he just looked tentative. He was going to win that fight because Jose Ramirez was a punching bag. But Devin needs to look inside and realize he's better than what he thinks he is, and he can hold a shot better than what he thinks he can. He's not chinny. He's been dropped, but he's not chinny. But I think he's just so scared of taking a shot now. You can see that in his fights. And at this level, it's fine because against Ramirez, because Ramirez is basically a punching bag. But he's got
that fight was crazy. They threw less punches than heavyweights.
Yeah.
That's insanity, man.
Haney's never been good to watch. He's just he's just a decent fighter.
Yeah, but this was specific, especially like bad. You know, it was really bad.
He was too shaky at the start, way too shaky.
And the thing is, Haney was starting to look better at junior welterweight. You know, his fight was pro grade. He was looking like he was getting a bit of pop in there, you know. But then I think this Garcia was just derailed him a little bit.
Mentally, he's got the skills to win the fight. At the top level, especially if he comes against punchers, it's going to be a real question of whether or not he trusts himself against these punches. Because if he's always so like defensive and he's always biting at everything, then
he was running around that whole ring, man. It was insane. That's maybe people say like, he ran for 12 rounds. That's what I imagine in my head.
But yeah, he was running for a couple of rounds. But then as the fight built on, he then started to get more comfortable in it. But it was still like not a lot he was doing. So
yeah, there's nothing much to take out of that fight, to be honest.
Then we move on to the Canelo card. Wasn't much to talk about. I mean, Canelo's Canelo. He's washed. He's falling off a cliff right now. And Skull didn't come there to try win. I mean, he was trying to box, but he needed to do more. He wasn't really trying to engage as much when he felt the power. It wasn't a great watch. Bakole, Weight Watchers, brother. It'd be good for you.
I thought he lost that fight, man.
He lost.
Yeah, he lost. Whatever, I guess.
A lot of it comes down to the simple fact of, as a heavyweight, you can come in heavy. You can't. There is such a thing as too heavy for heavyweight. And athletically, you don't perform well if you're too heavy, and he didn't. He was good for a couple rounds, and then after that, it just falls off a cliff. And it's striking to me that only now they think about getting him a nutritionist and a like a nutritionist and a diet plan. You would have thought, even if for heavyweights, you would still have a diet plan for an athlete that's going to fight. But it's I think they said something about him going to all the Congolese restaurants and whatnot in Scotland and whatnot. And yeah, I don't know. He's just.
I definitely thought he lost that fight. I don't think either of them are that good, to be honest. But I thought Ajagba outboxed him for a few rounds and was countering well and was moving around the ring well. And Bakole at points just looked like a bit lost. He always started to get more momentum towards the end of the fight, but before that, Bakole just looked lost, man. Yeah.
No, he's nothing. Yeah, he's lost a lot of his that kind of boogeyman talk.
Yeah, that's why sometimes it's dangerous to take those last minute fights, boy. You have to be careful sometimes.
But even that, you give him credit, but it's what you done after. It's like you still came in fat. So even with the full camp, you still came in fat, and you still look slow. You look like you came in on 2 days' notice again somehow. It doesn't make sense, but yeah. But obviously the Inoue fight was the fight that saved that weekend, because I mean that was an insane fight to watch from start to finish. I mean, one of the biggest things that happened in that fight was in the second round, Inoue gets dropped with a mad left hook. I mean, watching that left hook back, that's the type of left hook that knocks people out. He took it flush, went down, took the 8 count and came back, and he was just he wasn't intent on boxing, he was intent on knocking Cardenas out. And it was such a fantastic fight to watch. And we've also got Chris joining us. Chris, how are you, bro?
Yo, lads, how's it going? You good?
Yes, brother Chris. All good, man.
Just talking about the Inoue fight. So with that fight, I mean, he wasn't really intent on looking to box. I mean, a lot of guys, especially when they get dropped, and then they have good fundamentals, they just go back to like being a bit more conservative because they know the power was hurting him. The power was getting to him at 122. I think Cardenas can really hold a good shot and he can throw a good shot himself. He looked a bit powerful, and he was feeling it, but he was going to war with him. He was making the adjustments, taking that left hook away, taking the punches away, making him miss by literal inches. I mean, if you were watching the fight, he was literally slipping and missing, rolling out the punches and leaning away from them by literal inches. and then slowly broke him down by using body shots and really slowed down Cardenas to the point where eventually Inoue was able to put the finishing touches and the ref had to step in. It was a good, fun fight to watch. If you're a guy that's never watched Naoya Inoue, that's a fun fight to watch. I mean, it's just pure action from start to finish. From a purist standpoint, it's not good for Inoue, because if you're someone who we're looking at as the top 3 pound for pound, you're competing with the likes of Usyk and Crawford, you should not be getting dropped by a guy like Cardenas. By nary fine, that's one of the top 122 fighters. Cardenas at the moment isn't. He's a guy that no one wanted you to fight in the first place. This was a guy that's maybe in the top 10 if you're lucky, but as a pound for pound fighter, is someone that you shouldn't have been fighting. And the fact that you got dropped by him and then went into a life and death war with him is not good for pound discussions. And it also brings into question about where Inoue is in his career. He's past his peak. I think most of us know that already, that he's past his best. But even though he's past his best, he's still more than capable enough of beating world-class fighters. But it's more and more evident. I could see it here where the weight is catching to him. I think he's finally feeling the effects of bigger fighters. Because the shots there did hold weight, and he did get hurt by some of the shots as well as getting dropped. Also, he's too greedy at times. I think, especially with the level of fighters that he thinks he's fighting, he's going too hard to knock him out, and that's what got him dropped.
How greedy?
Got him dropped against Neri and got him dropped against Cardenas. The left hook, and the left hook was the same thing that Donaire threw to break his eye, his orbital. So that's a shot that he really doesn't see it often, because he always throws, when he throws, his right hand is really down because he's looking to throw that right hand with the next punch. So it's something he's going to work on, especially if we're looking at future fights for him, because of course in September he's got MJ Akhmadaliev, which I think, look, even if you put this version of Inoue that stepped up against Cardenas against Akhmadaliev, he still beats Akhmadaliev. But when we're looking at a fight, for example, in April against Junto Nakatani, you cannot be making those mistakes. Nakatani will obliterate him. Nakatani is a big dude, and that left hand he throws is insane. And if he lands that clean on Inoue, I don't know if Inoue can take that. I think that will really hurt him. And if he hurts Inoue, he's much better than Neri and Cardenas, where he can really put the gears through and finish Inoue. But those are the big fights that we need to see from Inoue. And if he wins those fights, like now we're kind of doubting whether or not he can win these elite level fights. And if he wins them, that sets his legacy apart. He beats the likes of, Nakatani. And if he goes up to featherweight, for example, and he fights Rafael Espinosa, that's 6'1" featherweight. Imagine that, 6'1" guy versus 5'5" Inoue. And he managed to beat those guys, which I don't think he can. I mean, I'm an Inoue fan, but I don't think at this stage in his career he can beat those guys. But if he does it, that's pound for pound level. You're pound for pound number one. You trump Usyk and Crawford in that moment. Obviously, if
one of the greatest fighters of all time, boy.
Obviously, if Crawford doesn't beat Canelo, that's a caveat. But that's the big thing for him. So there's a lot going for Inoue, and there's loads of question marks now whether or not he's still that elite level fighter. He's more than better than world class. He's probably still elite. Is he still that same elite level where you can take out anyone, you can still beat anyone? We still have to see. I think there's a lot to come from. There's a lot of questions to be answered in the next couple. I'd say in the next 18 months. Chris, did you catch the Inoue fight? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I did, man. I thought all around, especially coming from, the two dud cards that we saw, it was an entertaining fight. As a neutral and as a fan of boxing, sometimes you do want to see fighters overcome some sort of adversity to get a victory. But I thought Inoue was obviously very dominant. He was scoring. He was landing the scoring shots. More effective, more power. But like you said, he just got greedy. He got a bit too greedy. He got carried away. Sometimes he just needs to realize that, look, I'm still in a fight. I'm still fighting live dogs. All of these guys can punch. And, he's fighting a guy who was looking for that same shot for so long. Even after the knockdown, he landed it a few more times. But it just looked like Inoue was a lot more prepared and ready to deal with whatever shots were being thrown at him after the fact. Good fight all round. I I don't know. Some people were talking about the stoppage was a bit early. Um, I'm not sure. I could see it both ways. I could see it both ways. I could see someone saying, he could have continued a bit longer and whatnot. But ultimately, I feel like it was going in one direction after that knockdown, after he got back up. He managed to compose himself well. He took the time he needed to compose himself. He didn't get up and pull a Zab Judah. Um, so yeah, all round, I think it was a good fight. Like you said, it does show some vulnerabilities. He's been dropped, what is that, twice in his last three?
Yeah,
Um,
last four.
oh, last four, sorry,
No, no,
yeah.
no,
In
no.
his,
It's
is it
yeah,
last?
four, 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 four.
Is
He's
it
had
four?
four. Yeah, because he had one in January when he was meant to
Ah,
fight
yeah,
Goodman.
yeah, yeah,
The guy pulled
yeah,
out. So then he had Doheny and then
yeah,
Neri.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So twice in his last four, which isn't the best for a pound for pound fighter. And like you said, a Nakatani, if he lands flush and clean, and Inoue is getting carried away, I don't think he recovers from that personally. But yeah, all in all, he got the job done in the end. He overcame his adversity. He may be past his best, but there's still a lot to see from Inoue.
Dapo?
Yeah, I caught the fight. I agree with the both of you. I do think Inoue might be slowing down, but what a legacy he's had so far. Top fighter. I think he's still elite. I think you're right, Naeem. He shouldn't be getting dropped by these guys, but I do believe as well, like the going up in weight is showing itself in that some of these punches that he may be used to being able to take in the lower weight classes, he has to reevaluate if he can take those kind of shots and potentially work on his game plans a bit more because we used to call him the monster and well we still call him the monster, but in that monster name was because he just used to run through guys. Pause. You know, I don't think he can. I don't. I don't think he can. I don't think he can afford to fight with that mindset when he's going up in weight like this. I think he needs a measured. He needs measured performances, and he ultimately started to do that after the knockdown. He started to take his time and invest in the body and go through the gears to get a stoppage win. I'm with you, Naeem. I'm very, very unsure whether he can beat some of these guys that you're naming, like Nakatani, especially Nakatani. I think he actually loses that fight. Not gonna lie, I just think Nakatani is just too big of a puncher, especially for where Inoue is at his career as well. I think that's a very, very tough fight for him. But he's built such a legacy, like even at this period where he is now, he's done so much already, and for him to still be elite at this point of his career, I think it's just a massive, massive achievement. So although it's concerning that he was dropped by, it's concerning that he was dropped, but at the same time, I have to give him credit because he's had such an incredible legacy so far, and he was still able to get off the canvas and secure the win, which is not something every fighter is able to do. A lot of people that we think are elite get dropped, and that's it. You're losing the fight. I'm not saying no names, but yeah, man. I enjoyed the fight, and I'm looking forward to some of these future fights for Inoue.
For those that don't know who he's referencing, he's referencing Ryan Garcia. He's also referencing AJ. Anyway, yeah, but Inoue Nakatani, man, that is a flipping super fight. You see how big Fury AJ is for Britain. That's the same level that you're going to get in Japan if they make that fight. They're looking at making.
I would love to go there to watch that fight.
The,
That's a dream.
the vibe there.
What are you saying, Chris? We go there, watch the fight.
Oh, hey, listen. It might be worth looking at like tickets. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I'm being for real.
Oh yeah, so am I. So am I.
April
You know me. You know me.
April 2026. It'll be insane.
Like I'm dead serious.
Yeah, same.
I'm dead serious. I just hope.
That's a very justifiable reason to go out there, bro.
Honestly, I just hope both guys do what they need to do before that time. That's my only.
Well, I mean,
only hope.
Nakatani's got the unification with Nishida coming up in June. I think he's going to win that, but it's a good fight because Nishida's a good fighter. And then I think Nakatani should have one more fight in November-ish time, December-ish time at 122, maybe against a Lewis Neri, get acclimated to the weight, and then April, all systems go for that big fight. Because imagine the scenes on fight week, like the amount of Japanese fans that will be around, like how big the fight would be.
Right.
Like,
that's a once in a lifetime kind of thing, man. You have to go. I can't even lie.
Yes, once in a lifetime because Fury and AJ won't deliver here, will they? So...
forget those guys, man.
But that would be insane, and that's the big key thing with Inoue is let's see what he can deliver. It's clear he's not going up to featherweight at the moment. He said it himself. He's happy with where he's at with his weight class at super bantam, which makes sense. You know, he's not the biggest guy. He's not got the biggest frame like that to be able to move through weight classes like that. I think Nakatani has more potential in him to go up more weight classes. If you look at this differences in their frames and their builds, but that guy's got a lot of big fights on the horizon anyway, and let's see. This could be. He's already like you said, Dapper. He's already defined his legacy, but his next couple fights could enhance it even more and could take him to new levels. So it'll be very interesting to see. And we'll come to this week's fight where Anthony Cacace took on Lee Wood and he stopped him in the 9th round. Firstly, I got to say, Lee Wood, one thing I credit about guys like Lee Wood is they are old school fighters in the sense of to be able to get that Nottingham Forest crowd, despite not fighting for almost 2 years, and the noise they made, insane, man. Like that type of fan base and being able to create that, you can't do that on social media. You've got to do that like on the ground, going to people, delivering tickets to people's houses, being there in the neighborhood, being there at the football matches, garnering that big fan base. I mean, you rarely see it. I mean, we've seen it in the last 10 years with like guys like Lee Wood, Josh Warrington. Who else used to be able to do it? Because Warrington had Leeds. Bellew kind of had it with Everton, kind of ish, because he had the whole Everton fan base thing. But to be able to get those football fan bases behind you is a big thing, and the atmosphere that night was insane. I mean, these lot was like, it felt like a football match. But Anthony Cacace, man, I gotta give him credit, man. To be able to go on a three fight run of stopping Joe Cordina, beating Josh Warrington at Wembley, and then stopping Lee Wood. I mean, this guy's work.
That's a crazy run.
It's underrated work. He has dominated those 3 names, the big names as well. And he looks good. He looks like a very good and competent fighter. And it looks more so that he's finding more power in his shots. A lot of people are running PED shots. I ain't gonna say nothing. I don't know. I'm not gonna think. I just think he's one case is that can happen, and we saw it with the Bruno Sarace fight with Munguia when you knocked him out. Is sometimes you can just get the timing of your punches better. You're able to punch through better. That can happen a lot in a fighter's career, where they're able to get more knockouts because they spend more time being able to punch through rather than just point fight. But he was good, and Lee Wood's a good operator, but you could just see the ring rust after 2-3 rounds where he wasn't able to be sharp. He was just swinging for the hills. He's got tough heart, but he was doing well with body shots, and Cacace didn't like them. But then Cacace threw his own body shots and really broke down Wood. And then eventually, Ben Davison had to call the fight. He loves his fighters, and he doesn't want to see them get laid out completely. So he called the fight, pulled the towel. No complaints. Lee Wood wasn't complaining about it. He was basically running away at the end from Cacace because the body shots were too much for him. But it was a good fight, and for Cacace, these are the type of performances you need to keep pushing on in your career and getting more fans. Chris, did you catch that fight, and what do you think of it?
I didn't manage to catch the whole fight, so I saw like highlights and little bits. But Cacace, like, looking like a different man, looking like a completely different man. Where has the power come from all of a sudden? Like, I don't know. That's strength and conditioning. Like maybe snack. Well, I don't know. But yeah, like all credit to him. Lee Wood is a very game and experienced fighter who's seen it all, and for me, just looking at how Cacace's managed to really kind of break his will within the fight, I was impressed. I do need to catch the full fight to catch all the nuances, but overall, very, very impressive. He looked good. He looked like a he looks like a different fighter. Looks like a real competent fighter. So credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Cacace now, it's like you've gone on this 3-fight run where you've beaten some of the biggest names in those divisions in Britain. Now it's all about, well, he's become a world champion and then he dropped it. Now it's about, he said himself he wants the biggest fights. I'm not sure in that division where he can really get the biggest fights. I mean, he said he wants to fight Oshaki Foster for the WBC belt in Belfast, which probably could do numbers. I'm not sure about Cacace's following out in Belfast. It might be decent, and they might be able to do a crowd there. But it obviously is not the biggest fight he's looking for. But it will be a good fight. It won't be the most watchable fight because Oshaki Foster doesn't have that style that brings out violence and entertainment. It's more about being more precise and being very box heavy and concerned with your own boxing. You've also got Lamont Roach, where he's not coming back to 130 after the tank rematch, so it'll probably be Batagaziev, and that's a tough fight because Batagaziev is a good fighter, but not really well known. So again, it doesn't really give you that much. A fight that could happen, though, I don't think it'll happen for August, because is the Ray Ford fight, and you could put that on the Queensberry Matchroom card that they're looking at in August. That is a very good fight to make because Ray Ford is a top quality operator. His power seems to hold at 130, not the biggest puncher, but like it's not like he's having issues with his power and he's pillow fisted. And he's a very good top technical operator. He's quite small as well, so it might suit Cacace to fight a smaller fighter like that. But it'll be a fun fight, that one. It'll be very technical, but they'll both go at each other. So that might be a decent fight, especially if they do it on a Queensberry Matchroom card. That's Riyadh season money as well. So that could be quite interesting for Andy Cacace. But I got to give him his credit. He's been underrated with his work. He doesn't get enough credit for it, especially in British boxing. I think he's one of the more, and Dubois especially as well, the more underrated, credited fighters that have been doing their works for the last year or so, where they've been getting the big wins in, especially the win against AJ Dapo.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
I was there, brother. Anyway, but you know, he's been doing his work, and he's been getting the job done. And hopefully, he does get one of these big fights again against a world title fighter, because we need to see him against another world champion. So can't wait
100%.
for the next one. And we'll move on to this week's. It's quite slow. I told you guys this week is going to be quite slow when it comes to the boxing fights. And we've only got Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen, the rematch. Of course, the first fight was quite controversial in terms of the scoring. It went to a draw. To recap it quickly, Johnny Fisher looked good, pressed the gas a lot to try and knock out Dave Allen. Dave Allen looked competent. He looked fit. He looked like he'd take some of the punches. And then left hook, and Fisher was down, and he couldn't really recover after that left hook. And Allen kept pouring it on. Fisher really tough as hell. I think there was so many moments in that fight where Mark Tibbs, his coach, could have called it off, and you could have argued he should have in some moments. He should have, called it in. But Fisher managed to see the distance, and somehow the judges were able to score it as a draw. Yeah, it was a fun fight to watch in terms of they were really swinging at each other. But it wasn't one that Fisher won. It was clear that from the scoring, they weren't expecting Allen to win, and they don't want Allen to win because obviously Allen's not the biggest name. He's not a big fighter like that. Fisher's the one that brings in the tickets. He's the one that they want to get to the big fights. So they kind of needed to protect his undefeated record. So they're rematching now, and so it'll be interesting to see what they do. Before I give my thoughts on it, Dapper, let me get your thoughts on what you think about this rematch.
Yeah, the first fight I thought Allen won by a round or two. My problem with Dave Allen is I don't feel like he's gonna be hungry enough to actually win the rematch. As in having his mind like, do you know what? I dropped this guy in the first fight. Let me train twice as hard this time round so I can get the win and secure the win. I don't think he's that kind of fighter anymore. I don't think he's in that point of his career anymore. So I feel like Fisher will be able to do enough to secure the victory this time, probably on points or some controversial stoppage, is how I see it. I think he's the younger fighter, and he still has his ceiling is still there for improvement. He can still improve a bit. Whereas Allen, I don't think he's going to improve any more than he is now. and I don't think he has that kind of hunger to become world champion or go far in the sport. So I think we've seen these kind of fights before where the up and coming prospect or the up and comer like wins a controversial fight and then a rematch and then he wins it properly. We see that all the time in boxing. I think this is going to be another example of that. Yeah, I think Fisher wins on points. I don't think Allen cares enough to actually win, and yeah, that's how I see it.
But that's a fair assessment. I mean, Chris, you've got the insider info here. Do you think Fisher can pull off the well, I was going to say repeat or revenge, but really it's not really revenge because it was a draw. But you think Fisher can pull off the job at the Copper Bosch?
I think he's gonna do it. I think his game. He knows. I feel like there was an illusion, maybe, especially with his last fight against Babic, that he was going to steamroll a lot of these British level, mid-tier fighters. You know what I mean? With his fighting style, he carries a lot of power. Very British in his fighting techniques, but
I don't
his
know why
game.
very British is killing me.
He's very British. He's a
Oh,
very
come on.
British, yeah, very British fighter, very British schooled, yeah. But ultimately, the last fight was clearly controversial. Probably shouldn't have got the decision. Um, he never recovered from the shot. We know that, and I feel like that plays a big part. I feel there was a lot of inexperience there with how he ended up getting dropped. And I don't think he'll make the same mistakes again. I feel like there's like how do I put it? I feel like Johnny Fisher has always been a really nice guy. Great guy. Very polite. You see him, he'll speak to you off the street, whatever. But I feel like he almost carries that kind of gentlemanly nature into the ring at times. He needs to be game and he needs to be smart and crude. When things are happening on the inside, get that shot. Do you know what I mean? If the shot's available, if the shot's there to land, so long as it's legal, land it. Push the barriers if you need to. Do you know what I mean? Do what you need to do to get the win. Um, Dave Allen has seen it all in boxing. He's sparred all of them. He's fought quite a few top guys. Obviously, he's never really managed to do anything great in terms of winning belts and whatnot. But he's well respected as a fighter. And for me, I feel like he's done it all. He's looking at his way out of the sport. He's in it for the money, from what I can see. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it comes across as him able to make another quick buck. I don't really feel like he wants to go on a run and fight for world titles and whatnot. Probably just wants to buy a few more houses, expand his YouTube channel. You know what I mean? Maybe get into punditry and whatnot. And Fisher needs to take advantage of that. Fisher needs to make the most of the fact that he needs this win more. And I think he'll get it. I think he'll get it. I don't know if he'll get a stoppage. I can see a points win because, as we know, Dave Allen is durable. He's a durable fighter. So I could see it go into the scorecards. But, I feel like he might do it. I hope he does it. Do you know what I mean? I hope Johnny Fisher does it. So
Or you could just get stopped.
if he gets stopped, if he was to get stopped, I don't know where that leaves his career.
That's crazy.
I don't know
It'll be a
where
very
it.
tough position. Very tough
Yeah,
position.
it'll be a very, very tough position. He's young enough that he can come back, he can rebuild, but it's just a very, very long road back. It's a very long road back, for sure.
The one thing that I disagree with about Dave Allen is generally I agree with the sentiment that Dave Allen doesn't really take the sport seriously, like you say, and he's in it to make a quick buck. And He doesn't train as often. He sometimes comes in looking overweight. It was the Fraser Clark fight where he was tough, but he just didn't look fit. He didn't look ready. He just showed up basically. But for some reason, whenever I see him talk about Johnny Fisher, it doesn't seem like he hates Johnny Fisher or anything. They genuinely seem like they're calm with each other. But they've sparred before they fought, and I think it was reported that Allen beat him up in sparring. And I think there's something about Dave Allen. There's something in Dave Allen that whenever Johnny Fisher is brought up, or whenever he has to fight this Johnny Fisher fight, it makes him train harder than ever before. Like when he was in that fight against, in the first fight with Johnny Fisher, he looked in much better shape than what I would have expected him to be in, and he actually was. His fitness was actually quite on top on that fight against Johnny Fisher. And I think sometimes, like if you put, for example, if this Saturday, Dave Allen was fighting Anthony Joshua, I think he would come in overweight, he'd take the battering, and then he'd probably lost the decision if he tried to, and then takes his money. He doesn't really care too much. I think there's something about whenever you speak to him about Johnny Fisher, or he talks to Johnny Fisher, there's something about him that resonates from the sparring where he wants to replicate that and beat the crap out of Johnny Fisher. Like it's just something inside him that makes him want to train harder. I think he's gonna come in decent shape. Not obviously it's Dave Allen, he doesn't come in great shape anyway, but he's going to train for this fight again. I feel like there's a chance he couldn't, but I think that's what's going to happen. And he's going to be tough. But I think Johnny is going to have to really take 20% off of his power shots and really look at making this a long fight at, keeping him at range, getting your shots off at range. And then when you are in close, like you say, try to be rough and tough, but then push him off if you need to, then get back to work again. Because he's going to have to. This is one of those fights where it's not about looking good. If he does look good, fair enough. He's really reinvented what he had to do to beat Dave Allen. But it's about getting the job done. Because he just doesn't. It doesn't look like his punches really affect Dave Allen like that. And then it looks like Dave Allen's punches actually affect him more. So he's just going to have to get the job done. But like you say, I agree with the fact if he loses to Dave Allen at this stage, it's very tough for him because we don't. None of us really look at even most Johnny Fisher fans, the casual fans, the people that love his dad and they go Bosh and all of that. Even none of them are kind of shouting at you that he's going to become a world champion. They just like watching him fight because he's that rugby player. He's got that rugby player style where you put a rugby player into boxing and they've got that basic style. They punch hard and it's fun to watch. And fair enough, he's got a decent.
He was a rugby player, wasn't he? So,
yeah. So he's got that complete style about him. Not complete in the sense of boxing, but in the sense of being a rugby player coming to boxing. And we always kind of knew that whenever he steps up to world level, he's going to lose. And that's fine because at the end of the day, not everyone's meant to be a world champion. Not everyone's meant to go. But he could sell a few tickets. He could probably get a big fight. He could probably sell out. I think he sold out the O2 before, but he could sell out a decent arena if they pushed him further enough. But this is a big hump in his career that he needs to get over, and I think the way I'm looking at it, I think he'll be more locked in, and I think he will be able to just do what he needs to do to get the job done. It might not look pretty and he might not look like the best boxer, but as long as he gets the win, that's the most important part. Then they can go on to the next one, and the next one can be a step down where they get a random journeyman for him to knock out again, just to build that confidence and demeanor back up, and then go for whatever it is to go for. But it's quite interesting that he's like, I wonder where he is mentally with this fight, because I know it wouldn't have been nice for him because he was taking a real battering against Allen in the first fight, that he would really have to look at things again. And we'll see how, when he comes into this fight, what does he have that kind of dog in him to overcome this adversity as well. So a lot on the line for Johnny Fisher, because Eddie Hearn's really banking on him. He's not looking at him as like a Moses Itauma to go and win a world title, but Eddie Hearn's banking on him to sell tickets and to keep pushing up the level so they can keep selling more tickets and make the stakes higher so that they can make more money off of him. But let's see, because it's one where I don't think the fight's going to look good, but I think Fisher gets the job done. I think he'll just about get the job done. So on the record, boxing says if Fisher can't beat Allen convincingly at this stage, then it's extremely worrying. True, but has anyone ever looked? And let's be real, I'm not trying to be rude to Johnny Fisher. Obviously, he's a boxer, and you can go on to do whatever you want. But has anyone ever looked at a Johnny Fisher performance and gone, yeah, this is a guy that can go to world level and can really mix it up with the top heavyweights? Not really. There's never been a performance in Johnny Fisher's career where you looked at him and you went, oh, like we did with Moses Town, where you go, he's a proper talent. You just looked at he can punch hard, he's competent, he can probably go up the levels to win a British title, maybe get to European level, and that's about it. I've never looked at the Allen fight, for example, and gone, oh, if he doesn't win this, he's not going to... I kind of know where he's at. And so him not winning this is actually just worrying in the sense of he's not even where I thought he should be. So, and that's not... I'm not trying to be rude. I just think I've never been convinced of Johnny Fisher as a world level talent, but I've always been convinced that he'll be a good ticket seller and he'll get into some good heavyweight scraps. Like, you could do Fisher versus Chisora at some point. And he probably would win that at the back end of Chisora's career when he's like 49 or something. And he'll sell tickets and it'll do well for him. So I've never looked at him like that. So
that Chisora guy is dangerous, you know. I don't know if I'll take that fight from him.
Not now, but if Chisora keeps fighting on, you can take it when he's older and the CT is like basically taking over all of his body. But anyway.
Yeah.
The DBC Heavyweight Boxing says, thanks for posting. The DBC is not investing in this one. I wonder what DBC means. After having been robbed of an 8-1 win last time that Alan won. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, Alan won that one, and I hate it when they do that where they don't give the fighter the correct, you know, they don't give their props, because if Alan got that win, it would have been big for his record, and he probably would be able to negotiate more in the rematch talks, so would have got more money, but that's the dumb game that we're in. I don't think there's anything else this weekend, so that's really it. Like I said, it's a slow weekend, and one of the issues of having that Ryan Garcia Inoue card and everything is if you condense it all into one weekend, then the rest of the weekends kind of get a bit slower. Let me just check. I wonder what was on next week, because I'm just trying to see what is there. I mean, next week you got Josh Taylor versus Echo Esserman, which will be fun to watch. Moses Talm obviously makes his return against Mike Balogun. You've got Nathaniel Collins versus Lee McGregor. That's not bad. Yeah, not great. not great. But yeah,
we'll build up for summer, aren't we?
I mean, what we'll do at some point is we need to get Jide and Samps on as well, because we need to talk about the big fight being announced with Canelo and Crawford. That will be that's something we need to break down properly.
Yeah.
This is boxing sometimes where they don't do everything properly, so the scheduling gets a bit iffy. Like, these are decent British fights, but they're not something to like scream over. So like, if you miss them, you're not missing much, if you're being honest. But look, everyone, enjoy your weekend. If you're not watching the Johnny Fisher fight, enjoy the weekend. At least you get a weekend off without having to stay at home. Make sure to subscribe and like and leave comments on the video. Also, share the video to anyone who you know watches boxing and wants to get involved. And also, please follow us on Twitter at Ringside Fracas and on Instagram at Ringside Fracas. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.